Welcome everyone to the third episode of To the Sky because that is our goal is to reach the sky. And today we are joined by my friend Rogan. And can you please introduce a little bit about yourself, Rogan?
Hi, my name is Rogan. I'm 25 years young of this recording. I studied the Bachelor of Creative Technologies along with Franz. We both met each other, became friends, very similar hobbies and interests, even though we didn't have any projects together either. But we remained friends after the degree completion.
What is your main interest in the field of technology? What draws you?
To be fair, like for a long time, I really wanted to make technology like the Marvel films or hand gestures and UX, UI, different ways that we can facilitate the way I use our technology compared to keyboard and mice. I find them very dated pieces of technology. They're great for what they are, but they could be harnessed in such a way that like we don't even know yet, like web cameras that pick up our fingers and then we can just explode images, zoom in, all those things that you see in sci-fi films today, I guess are really an inspiration to me.
I guess something like a Minority Report. Have you seen that film? Yeah, that's pretty much where I really noticed what they heavily emphasize the hand gesture stuff. Um, okay, I mean, is that your goal right now? Is to increase or to better our interaction with technology? Is that your main focus?
Like, it's a tough question. I always found that as my like calling because I can see things very visually in my head. So it's very annoying to then have these visual like ways of how you want computers to work, and you're stuck in front of another way of using it, like a keyboard and mouse again, or a joystick, or a gamepad, for example. But I've started leaning towards more project owner, project scrum leaders, toolkits, design methodologies, things like that, and more recently, more than most in my last few years of university, especially, as you would know. But for the audience as a whole, wouldn't have known.
So, okay, I mean, I love it. So essentially, you consider yourself as kind of a leader, or in charge of projects. Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I would say where I've come from, where I used to be, to where I was at university, to where I am now, I'm more holistically anything technology related. If it can solve a problem, how we can solve it on a technical level, on a specification level, or maybe a software or implementation level, and different other things inside of what the solution would be entitled to.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Number one, I always like to ask this. I feel like this is going to be the heart of this show. Are you always learning?
Yes. I think it's ironic and to say yes and no, but mainly yes. Currently, I'm in retail. I'm not going to be rude to my employer, but basically, retail really, brings you down sometimes. It's a very basic job that it feels like any run-of-the-mill person could do. But you're learning how they operate, how corporates at a large structure organize their teams, how it trickles from CEO down to directors to managers, to operations managers and managers to team members. And it's really interesting to see on larger scale business how that is done. Normally, you would think once a year, a CEO would send out an email, maybe. I think maybe it's just COVID, but the current company I work for has a workspace group. It's an internal Facebook for those who are unaware of. And every week, the CEO would make an update on how COVID's going and different other things. And it kind of felt like he was coaching us all as a team, no matter if you were the first peg of a team member all the way up to like where you see him every day as a director / board on the chief executive suite. So it kind of felt nice to know no matter who you were valued by our company.
I do think that's a very, very powerful part of a company. Maybe what you're thinking of is something I would have thought of for maybe companies from 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? Where they release a memo once a year saying how well it went, or how bad it went, I guess. So I do agree. And I guess that really answers us what's the one thing that you've learned. And I really appreciate that, even being able to have that first role really gives you an insight of, I guess, how a company is structured, right? How a company organizes itself. I imagine within your company there be hundreds, maybe if not more, people, and how do you manage something that wide, right? Even when it comes to the logistics of things, how do you move things around? Is there any current project that you're working on?
There's not a project that I'm working for at the company because it's retail.
No, it doesn't have to be. Like a side project or anything that interests you right now.
I'm not working anything with the company, but in my own time, I'm working on a few things. But most of it is trying to prep myself for my future job, is trying to research the landscape and the ecosystem of current technology trends that I feel like I can hit the ball running, as they say, but in doing so, it's very restricted. And it's because a lot of the information I'm reading online might be happening already, but I don't have privilege to that information currently. So you have to do your best guess. All those lovely NDA, non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality where they're like, and ponder and kind of reverse think what they're doing and why you think they're doing it and what the reasons are behind it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like reverse engineering, but more like reverse designing.
I should probably not say this, but that could be the first time I've ever heard of reverse designing. I feel like I've heard of reverse engineering, but reverse designing, or I guess deconstructing designing and deconstructing engineering and how they work. And so, is that interest you, or is that the focus? Am I getting that across? Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, so reverse engineering, like anybody, you take apart a product and you can see piece by piece how they put resistors a certain way to maybe implement a camera to a smartphone.
Yep.
And then reverse designing is like, why would you add a camera on the back versus the front of your phone? And in this case, it's like because of the selfie camera, or I want to zoom someone while holding my phone. And someone goes, oh, I didn't know that. So case in point, the company that we're working for in February happened to have an online tool where they meet their clients, kind of like a private Zoom, but one-on-one.
Okay.
And there's a term amongst technology people, eat your own dog breakfast. It's kind of like eat your own product. And it's a very cool thing to do. And they use the same product to meet for clients the way you would have it on one-on-one consultation, but to interview us rather than using something like Zoom or Skype, because they found their platform more secure and they can do what they want. They own it. So and I was like, I thought that was the implementation of that technology. And my mind was like, so I was like, why would they use that technology? And it came to the conclusion of because they own it and it's free for them to use versus a Skype or a Zoom you have to pay for. As meaning of a software, I've just only named two.
Yeah. No, okay. I understand that. I feel like, if you're ever working at Microsoft, it's probably for the better you say I'm going to Bing it instead of I'm going to Google it kind of type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that, from this research, any insight that you kind of grasp that you can talk about?
From my interpretation, I think they're a company that's going through restructuring, and you can tell this by looking at people's LinkedIn of who's leaving and who's coming.
Yep.
And it seems a lot of the senior leadership, tenureship have been leaving, and it's kind of like the old chief giants of that legacy that's, put it this way, in my opinion, in a way, from the last 2008 to 2018, what's the biggest thing that's happened in technology, Franz? Yeah, nothing. You can only think of like one thing, maybe like 3D printing, and it's each industry specific. But when it comes to this industry, they're about to get disrupted the crap out of. And I think I'm in really good timing for that. But then the problem in doing it, I feel like I'm going to disrupt myself. And before you know it, I'm out of a job, if you know what I mean? It feels like. Well, but from what I can see, disruption is going to happen no matter what. It just happens that maybe they can mitigate the damage. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain to people who don't get what we're talking about.
Well, I feel like it's being prepared, and I think that's probably the main focus of your point. And I do agree, regardless with anything, right? Regardless in what technology and what field you are a part of, being prepared is probably the most important thing, because being complacent really leads to downfall, if not like instantaneously, but it can erode over time. I mean, there's been many, many companies out there that it's just the gold standard of failure, because they just thought they were at the peak, they were at the top, they got everyone's money, and it just doesn't end up because they just got a bit too complacent. Is there any past project that you're particularly proud of that you want to talk about, that you have been part of or been project lead at?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I finished university in December 2018, and since then I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where I wanted to place myself and where I want to get to. So the biggest project, if this was in that time, would have been redeveloping myself and trying to reimagine what I would have wanted and how I can mold myself to fit that role. And as of that year, basically most of it was querying questions, asking people on LinkedIn questions I've never met, Googling this, Binging that, etc. Just research and development on my own character.
Yep.
So then now it just comes to more of like conversion of then finding now the role I want and then getting that role, and then now kind of like evolving into my current project, which is like how can I better suit that team, which is hard because I'm not there yet, but they can put faith in hiring me for where I can impress them, then I'm hoping I can impress them hitting the ball running with something I already know about maybe their team. But I guess we'll have to wait to see.
Maybe not talk about who. I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about that, but what are they expecting from you? Can you talk about what you convince them that you will deliver to them?
I think, like, without getting into too much specifics,
Mm,
the company had a case study.
mm,
They basically gave us the problem of what they saw and then a role play at the end of it. I joined the session 5 minutes early to the semi Zoom video
mm,
conference room, and I felt confident with the information I had read and the information I was thinking about during what would be the you're meeting a client to discuss the problem they're having, that this is the brief in the case study, you represent this company, and your company specializes in these products. Go talk to the client, see what they think. And we start talking a bit this and this. And I felt like I did good for solving the problem, but I
mm.
felt like I didn't show off technology, which would have been the job I'm going for, which is
Okay.
in a technology team. And I showed the technology in the sense of solar panels and
Wow.
electricity,
Wow.
but
Wow.
not like VR, AI. And I was like, oh man, I've either got this or I've lost this. And both equally, like, I was like, so they go, oh, is there anything you want to do differently? And I'm like, well, I didn't implement VR or AI or any
Mm.
new emerging technology, but I talked about the technology of the company I represented, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. And she goes, "Oh no, like I think you did really well." And I was kind of like, "Oh, that's that
Well,
it
that's good.
feels to me that was like a nice pat on the back while
Mm.
stabbing me in the back because it like with HR they're always like you can never guess if they're telling you the truth
Uh,
to me. Just
I understand what you're saying.
like high functioning autism is a blessing and a curse, and one of them is where you can't tell which way things are swinging.
Mm.
So then I kind of like carried on, and at the end of it, I felt really good that then I then got the offer a week later.
Oh,
But at the
congratulations! So
time,
you
yeah.
have it. Congratulations, Rogan. Okay, yeah, it's wonderful.
So then it was just more like I felt like I didn't have it because it felt like I was not doing what was asked of me. Because one
Mm,
side of me is like, do AI, do VR, that's my degree. And on
mm.
the other hand, it's like, do what is asked in this case study. And it's like, I want to do both. And none really gelled as much as I could have. Like, I couldn't have made a VR experience
Yeah.
with the technology I was limited to solve the problem for the client.
I do agree that maybe there are some trappings in trying to pigeonhole a new emerging technology into every single problem. And I think I appreciate when you thought that maybe it doesn't fit in this scenario, because I feel like that's a better judgment than just trying to hammer in AI because everybody loves AI. I feel like that's a lot better in terms of what you did. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm,
As I also found out afterwards why they chose me over
mm.
some other candidates, possibly, which I didn't know at the time was the right thing. But it turns out, sometimes your subconscious is stronger than your mouth.
Is there anything that you're still interested in? Like, do you still have like a side project that you're super into that you're just currently pursuing because of reasons?
No matter what it is in technology, I'm
Mm,
always on TechCrunch. I'm always looking at the landscape. I'm looking at different trends and immersions and the way you can. There's a term I learned called analogous industries that, like, sometimes you take an approach and then you apply it to somewhere different and it just blows up. So,
mm,
like, when you approach a hotel, there's this bellboy and he collects your bags and he does everything for you
yeah.
up until when you go to your room and you take your bag and you put it in your room. That's called concierge service.
Yep.
And then you take that same concept, but you might apply it to technology and you're like, well, when you walk into an Apple store, the guy says hi to you and he looks after you until you walk out of the store.
Yeah.
That's a cruel example of it, but basically I'm looking at trends in other societies like a bus station or something and
Mm,
going, oh, what if every bus station had a blockchain technology which then you could like pay for the bus fare right there by tagging on before you even jump on the bus, and all the buses already know where you want to sit, so then everyone gets an assigned seat. So when you jump off, there's already an algorithm to know who's coming
mm,
in off of the bus to make sure everyone has a right seat for what would be the length of your journey. For me, I live on Auckland's North Shore, so I'm trying to give an example is from A to B,
yeah.
I get off, and someone goes from A to C, they assign him at the back, so then people at the front get off quicker to get off at stop C or D, or after that person gets off E. And put it this way, you need an algorithm with like 100 different possibilities, things like that. And my brain is just like, how do I implement technology that already exists and to solve a problem that already exists in the world, or slamming things together that don't exist?
I really love I love the way you think. I love how that's the kind of problem you're tackling, or at least thinking about. One thing that I've been discussing with somebody in the past. I don't want to be sounding like a naysayer, but we were discussing how apparently human just does not like being told what to do, I guess. I mean, in terms of that scenario, right? Uh, Assigned seating, I feel like even in airplane is such a problem already. Uh, I would love it if there's a way for us to not necessarily say, "Hey, you sit, you're going to sit at the back, or sorry, back left side of the bus, right?" But like more generically, can you please, say, see, sit at the back as opposed to you have a specific assigning. I think that'd be a lot better, group
Yeah.
targeting seats.
It's more zoning, I would call it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So like the last 4 rows of a bus would be seat zone A,
Yes,
and then
there you go. Yeah.
seat B. So you can choose where you want within the category, but the points being that you're separating it from people who have long haul
Yep.
get at the back, so then they're most likely to get to the front, and the people who are just going one stop will be at the front because it's an easy in and out, quicker change around. Because to walk from the front to the back takes 5 minutes. Walking to the front by one seat's 2 seconds. So
Yep.
the bus keeps moving.
Well, it's not even that. Like, I've been stuck on the bus, because initially the bus is not full, and then you go by university, buses are always full, right? So you get sandwiched in between, even though you're not going as far, so it takes forever for the bus to leave. So it creates this whole cascading problem, which I think can be solved by something as magical as this.
Yeah, but it's kind of complicated
I
as
agree.
there's fluctuations, variables, and etc. But the point is being that I'm taking something that already exists out there, and then you apply it to something new. So once that technology exists, you could say the same thing about stock. When you restock a supermarket shelf, how do you restock it? Currently, the method is you take the old one and you put the front one behind it. So then that's called FIFO, first in, first out, which means the last one is the newest to come out of the store. But then why isn't there FIFO on a bus? Because no one's really thought of it, maybe, or too much bylaws, especially in Auckland, and not trying to throw out jokes, but basically there's laws and bureaucracies, systems. But technology is supposed to be a tool, like a hammer, to help us. But I feel like there are times we're not harnessing the full capability of what's out there and possible. And I'm more of a utopian kind of guy, so I wake up in the morning and, my blinds wake up and my fan's already running to the optimal temperature. I'm kind of like feeling like I'm a cross between Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs all slammed together.
I love it.
So it's the way I want the world to be, because I live and breathe technology, as I'm sure anyone will tell you, excluding you, because you've already known that. I'm in the audience.
I do agree. I personally feel like I'm also looking on the better side. I feel like humanity can come together and solve problems. That's the reason, part of the reason why I started the show. I would like, people who I kind of speak with to come together and create a better society by creating networks, right? That's kind of one of my goal. You kind of have quite a unique future ahead of you now, but if there's anybody who's kind of following your footpath, or is interested similarly into what you're currently doing, what would you like to say to them?
My nugget of truth to someone in a similar scenario would be, don't be scared of failure. Astro Teller X. I left high school in 2012 at year 12 going, this isn't going where I want it to go. And I had to ask myself, where is it going to go? And it's the same old brick in a wall, Pink Floyd. They train you and then they put you into university. And I'm like, well, at the time, ignoring that lovely wall of my apprenticeship, I wanted to be in technology and I knew I loved technology. I just didn't know how. So I did a PC course in my year 13 year, which at the time was a level 5 diploma. So I was kind of ahead of the curve of my school year. But then when I finished that, I couldn't get a job in technology. Couldn't be a telco ISP desk. Couldn't just fix computers on a whim at PB Technologies. I couldn't do anything that that degree gave me. And I wanted to make it to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, as badly as the next person that loves technology. And then I met a friend of mine, I'd say met a mentor, taught me what UX design was. And I kind of was like, that's really cool, because that's something I wanted to do with technology. Didn't know it was even a thing, because at that time it was very emerging in technology. And then I found out I love emerging technologies. And then by doing so, then I'd be falling more so now into, where do I go from there? It's basically, I found a friend of mine at the time studying the Bachelor of Creative Technologies. Bing, bing, bing. and he was a third-year student, and he ended up going through high school with me, but then he ended up graduating high school and doing that. I took the year off, working part-time jobs, going to America, seeing family, and asked him, what is your degree? What are you doing? Can I do that? And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted a degree. I applied, and I felt like I was going to be the oldest one in the degree, because I was like 22. Turns out I wasn't.
We're the same age.
Turns out I met some friends the same age. Woo! Immediately graduated, and then now I'm on the stage where it's like, I feel like some of the offshoot conversations we had in our degree, as I'm sure you're probably aware of, but the audience, we'll do some weird tangents sometimes, and that's what I wanted to do because I found that fun, and then I'm hoping that will lead to what I'm going to be doing. But like basically it's like, don't be scared of failure. Failure to me at the time in year 7 and 8 with dyslexia was don't drop out of high school. And I wrote that as a goal in a bad way, like don't drop out and be a failure. Turns out I dropped out and I would say became an ultimate success because I found out what I wanted to do and how I'm going to get there. The problem being is when I wrote it, it said don't drop out. It meant like don't fail. Yeah. And I was scared of failure because my whole life I've been pigeonholed into a circle and failure was bad. Yeah. But failure to me is learning and growing now. But you don't know the difference between failure when you're like growing up and through puberty when you're 12 versus failure when you're a 25-year-old. And I think the term failure isn't bad. It should be called learning firsthand. Yeah. Because that's what it is. You're going through the experience and that's how you're growing. So I would say failure, it's not really failure. Failure to me now is like the whole computer's on fire and burning and the whole system's melting down. Yeah. Red alert. And even so, you learn from it. Turns out you might spill some water, and water's bad for computers if you don't know. If you're going to knock over your water onto your laptop, it's like highly likely you're going to die. But failure to me is different than if you asked me 10 years ago either side. And I think it's more learning and being embracing that you know you're going to fail. You just got to accept it. And the last failure I had, I learned a crap ton of it, both during it, panicking, and then afterwards trying to figure out how I can stop it from happening again. That's just life. Embrace failure.
I agree. I mean, for me personally, I also like to think that I've gone through a lot of failures, which felt at that time, at the very least, the end. You know, that's what failure sounds like. It feels like it's the end. There is nothing else. This is a dead road. You are doing something that's not going to lead to anywhere. Is kind of what failure felt like to me. But I kind of like to think of failure. You know, of course, failure is not the greatest, right? It's not what we want to be. Our show is called To the Sky. We want to be where the great people are, but it should be thought about as another way. You know, like a third door. There's this book that I really want to read called the third door. Essentially, it's all about everybody goes to school, get a degree, and get a job. But is that the only way for success? Is that the only pathway for success? And I do agree with you that if you learn early enough, that the answer is no. There is a multiple pathways to success, and I feel like the greatest things about like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates is the time when they failed, where the world seemed like the end, but they found a way around it. I think that's the interesting parts of their story, as well as their success.
If I ever make it big and this somehow gets archived in the world, as it will, like, they always publicize the great success. Bill Gates, Windows kid with Paul Allen. Woo! Yep. But they never talked about the trials that they had to go to get there.
This is it. This is what this show is going to be. I'm going to be archiving who's going to be the next CEO, the next CMOs, the next officers that's going to sit at the top of the world. This is where it's going to be. And I would love for everyone, as much as anyone who can get onto the show. And I say I got there first. I got the interview first.
Where I'm going at is Richard Branson, most people know as some billionaire who owns Virgin Airlines, Virgin Galactica. And Galactic. I'm sorry. A bit of a nerd here and dyslexic. And he's dyslexic also. But the point being, you had to go diving in to find that out. And most people don't know that unless you are dyslexic. So then my trials have been, it took me like 9 years to tie my shoelaces. it took me like 20 years to learn to ride a bike perfectly, basically, because I was traumatized at a young age because I fell off my bike and my leg went through the like gap in the bike and I went down a hill. Like, it's not so much a trial in the sense of like a baptism by fire, but at the time it's a really traumatic experience. And then now it's kind of like, you know what? If I could tell myself the same thing, it's just like, these things are just stuff you're going to laugh about when you're 25. And at the time you're there like crying your eyes out going, you don't know me. Like, it's just funny how much failure makes you grow. And I'm not trying to say go out and experience failure because it does suck.
Yeah,
but if
I agree.
Like, it's going to be good either way. The good outcomes, you didn't need to learn anything and you might learn new insights. Or if something bad happens, you learn new insights. And they're both equally good. You're going to get to the same insights regardless of what happens.
I agree.
Sometimes even better insights in my failures. Franz will tell you throughout university, grades in our degree, they're not easy to obtain A pluses and A minuses unless you're some kind of student. But there's a few which I won't name bash. But
I was never an A plus student.
Yeah.
I think I have 1 A throughout my entire degree.
Yeah. The smartest people in the room aren't the A plus students. I feel like they're the ones who read the book and then know exactly what the book is and how to bullcrap the lecturer. And I'm the guy who got like 6 C's and been called the next Bill Gates. And I'm there like, no, like maybe. But like the point being is that like it's the insights and the failure that make me think a certain way. So we had this brief about renewable resources and they're still arguing with me that glass is the next sustainable resource. And I'm like, no, the problem is then you make glass from plastic, the new problem. We were trying to get away from plastics and you're making it glass. You're going to get rid of all the oceans and the sands and the mountains because you need silica. And she's like, but glass can be remelted down. I go, what's the efficiency of that? And she goes, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I told her to Google it to find out if that was true. And she came back to me and said, actually, out of every glass bottle, only 25% can be made into new glass. I was kind of like,
wow.
I'm trying to help you because I went through that last year and I knew that. But she says, I know everything and you don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. I believe being able to open an idea. But I mean, I love the scenario because you guys were able to learn and grow. And I feel like when it comes to idea, nobody should feel like being attacked. You're not attacking them as a person. You're trying to handle the situation, right? Trying to solve the problem together.
Yeah. And you're more so trying to bring a reality that like the tangible nation of what a brief is or a problem is how you view your point on it. And just because you think it's renewable and maybe someone has a justifying opinion to tell you it's not, like, you know, even if they're right or wrong, I know I sound like I'm right all the time. Just like, you know, maybe you find something new out and that leads you to a discovery. So in my second year, I made an agriculture byproduct ag waste into a plastic. And I only found that by sheer chance of failures almost, that I was getting really fed up. And just when like you're about to fail, you get something good. And who said that the most? Thomas Edison. God, I should know off the top of my head, but like he had 3,000 question mark attempts before he made the light bulb. He envisioned it, and 3,000 times later, he was like, you know what? I'm going to crack it this time. No, I'm going to crack it this time. He refines the design and the process, and hey, presto, we have lights, everybody. And in the future, we now have LCD screens that you're looking at me and Franz on.
I think the most interesting part about that story is that, yes, he did try over and over again, but he was not trying the same solution over and over again. Like that would have been probably the worst part of it, is if you didn't learn or didn't grow from your first iteration, right? Yeah. And he just had 3,000 iteration. I think that's better. That's a better way to say it. 3,000 iteration or 300 iterations. I don't know as well how many times he has. He did it before he cracked the light bulb.
But the iterations that he made and tunes and fine tuning led to ultimate success in the end. That's one. But you have to imagine the other way where he's going through it. He's like, oh, that sucks. But, you know, the filament's too strong. The wire's too thin. The gases aren't working. The glass is too thick. I don't know. I wasn't there. But like, whatever he was writing down, he was learning from it. That's the main idea.
Can you let the people know where we can find you? Do you have any place for us to find you?
Unfortunately, having a name like Rogan, you can basically Google search me and I'll come up pretty quickly. Seeing Franz is probably posting this to LinkedIn. You can find me either up here or down there, depending on the way the video is posted. But basically, that's my LinkedIn. Feel free to follow. I don't post much content. Sometimes I throw out random ideas just to find out that I've already solved my own problem a few seconds later, like most recently, if you're looking at this one. But basically, like, I'm going to be soon enough making a YouTube channel. I just have to do more diving around about things I'm interested in. But it's hard when I'm interested in so many things. And I'm hoping that one topic about, I don't know, buses links to blockchain and blockchain goes to technology, and it keeps like pacing out, and people are like, how does he keep connecting dots? It just my brain does that subconsciously, and I'm just trying to get it to paper because it's just something that like I keep thinking about, and it's sick of me thinking about it without me telling people about it. So like soon enough you'll be hearing from me somewhere or another. I don't know when.
We'll look out for your channel and definitely be waiting for you to create awesome new content to solve the world problems. Thank you, Rogan. Thank you for coming onto the show. I am really glad that you came on here. I'm really happy that you came on here. Thank you for your time.
If there's one thing I like more than solving problems, it's seeing an idea that has legs and trying to invest my time into it is probably the most rewarding thing that I could do with my time. So rather than playing video games like Rainbow Six Siege, I'm here investing into my friend's project because I believe in it. So I encourage others who are watching this to hit up Franz because you could be helping him out as well.
Yeah. All right. I guess in terms of anybody to reach out to you, are you interested with working with other people in terms of opportunities, or are you quite tied up at the moment?
At the moment, I'm currently working a retail job, so I kind of am tied up. Come February, when I start my new job, I'll be moving cities, and once I settle myself in after, I don't know, 4 weeks, I will be going to the local startup places and going, you know what, I'm here, you want to talk, you want to brainstorm, just talk to me, just to make a name brand for myself, basically, starting off, and then hopefully I'll become the go-to guy for anything and everything.
So it'd be okay for people to reach out through to you as well, like with anything, I guess, in terms of
basically,
tech.
The only thing I would say is, I'm sorry if I don't pick up the phone. I'm either working, sleeping, or eating, and it's probably at the same time. Sometimes I sleep with my phone in my hand, which is really bad, but that's the way I am. So if I don't pick up, eventually, if you spam me enough, I'll probably see it, and I'll come try to figure out what I can do for you. But please note time zones. Me, especially, are in New Zealand at the moment, so sometimes it's 4 o'clock in the morning New Zealand time, and it probably is 6 o'clock at night in America. So if you're going to call me, I probably will pick it up and be a little bit grumpy, only because I'm a very slow wake up person. I'm more of a night person than a morning person.
I wish I have an audience in America for that information to be relevant. But yeah, I mean,
wait for this to explode, and then he has 100 people, and then they're all hitting up, and then he's like, "Oh, why didn't I listen to this guy?"
Maybe. I mean, here's hoping, right? All right. I wouldn't take too much longer of your time. Thank you very much, Rogan. I'm very happy for you to come on. Looking forward to hearing from your successes.
Thank you, Franz. I look forward to seeing your podcast take off to the sky.